Hello, and welcome back to the Subs in 15 podcast, where we talk about 4 different kinds of sports in 15-minute segments. Last week, we talked about the college basketball season in Kentucky, specifically, then the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA. This week, we have a special rendition where we're going to cover the Super Bowl over segments 2 and 3, so that unfortunately kicks out the MLB. But today, I have with me Editor-in-Chief Zach Combest and broadcasting producer Ryan Gum. How you guys doing?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
Can't complain.
Yep.
How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing pretty good. So I'm going to kick this off with you all first, and we're going to talk about Morehead versus Murray State.
Okay.
Big old OVC rivalry there. We used to play them for years, but now they're battling each other in the OVC. And Murray State, we got to talk about them. They have been really good this year, ranked in the top 25.
Undefeated in conference play.
Yeah.
They
Unbelievable.
Came into this weekend. Morehead, heartbreaking loss to Belmont in Tennessee on Thursday. Came in, as you just said, wanting to play the undefeated Murray. Ranked 23rd coming into this matchup.
Yep.
They were, I think, 1-2 or 1-3. Morehead, I think, after the loss to Belmont, was dropped to 3. So it was at least, regardless, both of these teams were in the top 3 in the OVC, which makes this matchup so much fun just on paper when you go into it. And they did not disappoint.
Not at all. Murray State, 14-game winning streak now. Unbelievable. Derek, what did you see from this game?
Yeah, Murray has been on a real hot streak. They haven't lost since they played Auburn back in December, which is an outstanding feat alone. And, they'd already played Morehead earlier this season, and they won that game 77-66. But this game was a lot closer, a lot tighter, better defense on both sides. I really think Murray just won this game in the transition. With the turnovers, they forced more turnovers on Morehead. And, I think that's where they really won this game. Ryan, what do you think?
I think you're right. I feel like more props should be thrown to the Morehead defense. Granted, they're at home, and offensively they did turn the ball over a lot, but they were able to hold that lead for a lot of that first half. It did not matter how many times they turned it over. It didn't matter the issues that they had offensively, because that defense, granted, you can make the argument that Murray was off their game a little bit, which they were. That is a proven fact, but maybe they were off their game because Morehead played so well defensively. It didn't matter the foul trouble. That was another issue in the first half. Janai Broom had, I think, 2 fouls, and he only played, I'm trying to remember, 8, 9, maybe 10 minutes that first half because of foul trouble. And they were still able to hold on to that lead. And so going into halftime against undefeated in conference play, ranked in-state rival Murray for one of the top seeds in the OVC, and their offense didn't show up, but their defense was still there.
Yeah. At halftime, Morehead State was leading 28-24, ended up losing 57-53. But Morehead, 42% shooting this last game on Saturday, holding Murray State to 35% shooting. That's pretty good. Even though they got the loss, but they're able to hold them down like you were talking about.
Yeah. No. Going into that second half, so many offensive turnovers, so many issues. It just seemed like any time that they looked to turn the corner, they would turn the ball over, and Murray would have that opportunity to make another run. They were up by 9. Morehead State was over Murray with just over 5 minutes to go in the game. And over that stretch, that last 5 minutes, Morehead only scored 1 field goal, and that was a 3. Let me see. Who scored that? Was it Holloway?
Yeah, I believe it was Holloway.
Yeah, by a Trey Holloway 3. And that was it. The final score ended up being 57-53 with a 17-4 swing in Murray State's favor. That just can't happen. You're the defending OVC champions. You have one of the best players in the conference in Janai Broom. He had a double-double, shot 7 for 14 and 11 rebounds on the day. How do you have a star produce that way? Get your double-double. Granted, he was in foul trouble. Granted, he missed some shots he should have made. But you can't score. It was the same issue with Belmont. That Belmont game was another low-scoring affair where they lost by, I think it was at one point, they lost 47, 46. Something ridiculous like that. When their offense needed to show up, they failed. So how Derek, I want to ask you this specifically. Moving forward, if we are Morehead, looking at conference play, you're probably getting that 3rd seed in the OVC. You're probably stuck behind Belmont and Murray. Murray's probably going to hang on to that 1 and Belmont at the 2. You're the defending OVC champions. You probably have arguably the best player in the conference, sophomore Janai Broom. How do we move forward knowing that fact, that we're stuck at 3?
I think you just got to look at it. It was the same as last year, right? I think they were the 2 or the 3 last year. They've been there. it's going to be the same road as last year, where they had the. I think Belmont happened to be the one last year, and Eastern Kentucky was the. I think they were the two, maybe. But I really think you just got to work on your defense, right? Like that's what you were talking about. Their defense played outstanding because Murray scores 80 points a game, and Moorhead held them to 57, and it was a tough fought 57 points that they got. So I really think focus defensively. They really let KJ Williams, turn it up in that game. He had 21 points, but they held Tevin Brown to I think it was probably a season low of like 6 points. So defensively, they knew what they were doing. They just got to execute on offense. In the final 6 minutes, they were 1 of 6 on field goals with 3 turnovers. That just can't happen. You can't have that sort of a scoring drought and expect to, beat a top 25 team, let alone anyone in the OVC.
Right.
Especially a top-heavy conference with Belmont and Murray State. Going forward, I really think they just have to work on that defense and then just be able to score the basketball. It's easier said than done, obviously, but you can't have such long scoring droughts and expect to win close games. It's just not possible.
Right. To back up what you were saying about the defense and how Moorhead should think moving forward, some numbers here. As you said, Murray State scores how many? 85 points a game?
It was 80, yeah.
80 points a game?
Yeah.
Moorhead held Murray to 35% from the field and 15% from 3. That's ridiculous. Zach,
Yep.
what's going through your head?
Yeah, Murray couldn't shoot at all. That was good defense from Moorhead, but on the flip side of that, Moorhead committed 16 turnovers, and that really hurt them. And offensive rebounds, only had 4 offensive rebounds. Like, being out-rebounded and losing the turnover battle, you could hold them down to 20% shooting, but you would still probably lose the game because of that.
Murray also had 13 offensive rebounds,
Yeah.
so they got out-rebounded offensively by 9, which is a huge swing.
Especially in a close game.
Right.
Yeah. So they got to definitely work on turnovers and collecting those boards more. So
I agree. So for Murray, they are looking forward to, they host Austin Peay, then they travel to Tennessee to play at UT Martin, which I feel like they're going to win both those games.
Easy games.
Yeah,
they'll win
like
those.
two against 2 opponents that kind of wishy-washy center to bottom of the conference. Then they host Belmont. Battle of the 1 and 2 seeds in the OVC. Derek, give me your thoughts on that matchup.
I don't see any way where I think Murray walks out of that with a loss. It's at home. We're going to Murray to play Belmont. And Murray has already shown their dominance over this conference completely. Haven't lost in conference. And they've already beat Belmont down in Tennessee by 20 on their own home court. So, just looking at that, knowing the history, I don't think it happens. But then, you know what? You could also argue, well, on the flip side of that, Belmont has something to prove now, right? That we got blown out on our own home court. We have nothing to lose. Let's just go play our hardest and see if we can walk out with a dub. Just kind of like how, Tennessee got blown out in Kentucky, and then Kentucky went down to Tennessee and got blown out. Obviously, it's the flip side where, you're now playing on their own home court. But I just don't think Belmont has anything to lose, so they could easily walk out with a win. I don't see it, however, though. I just think Murray probably wins that game by, double figures easily. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Just looking at their last game, just last month, it was 82-60 Murray State winning. So such a blowout like that, they got to be careful, though, and not kind of overpass Belmont and be like, oh, we beat them by 20 last month, we'll be fine. It could be a game where Belmont comes in, like you were talking about, and just blows them away. But playing on the road at Murray, tough environment, they're top 25. This game will be on ESPNU, nationally televised. A lot of pressure on this game. So Belmont will have to come in for sure ready to play.
Belmont is still still second in the conference, and historically, Belmont has dominated the OVC. Yeah. Now, both these schools, Belmont and Murray State, are leaving the OVC after this year, and they're going to the Missouri Valley. So it's interesting to see how these two teams, knowing that this is their last season to kind of get these bragging rights for this conference that they have battled over for so long, especially with Moorhead trailing right behind them, kind of the emotion that comes out. What will end up happening in this upcoming conference tournament. It'll be really fun to watch. Now, turning to Moorhead's schedule, they have 4 more games left on their remaining schedule, and they have 3 road games. So first they travel to UT Martin, just like Murray, and they come back home to host Southeast Missouri. In their last 2 games of the year, they're in Illinois to travel and play against Eastern Illinois and SIUE. What do they have to do to avoid any of these upsets? Because on paper, these are easily games that they can win, right? Once again, bottom dwellers of the OVC. Historically, they've been bottom dwellers. But always, as it happens when you get in late season and you kind of have these teams that are like, well, we have nothing to lose. There's always that upset, always these season spoilers. Right now, Moorhead's sitting at 19-8. 1 game away from another 20-win season, trying to defend their OVC championship. I feel like there's an upset brewing somewhere in there. There has to be, right? Like between one of those 3 seeds, top 3 seeds, all of them. But I have something about Moorhead when I'm looking at the schedule. 3 road games is a lot, especially right before the conference tournament. You travel to Illinois.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Especially too, because on the road this year, Moorhead is 6-7.
Yeah.
But at home they're 12-1. So they're way better at home than they are on the road. So having those road games, especially at the end of the season after being beaten down twice in 2 games there, I mean, I could see an upset as well happening, especially to one of those Illinois teams. I mean, SIUE, they're on a 2-game winning streak. I mean, they're trying to build on their season and get off from the bottom of the OVC standings. So they could sneak up and beat them, especially since they're going to be at home. So it's games to watch out for.
Yeah, I really think that, it's easy to overlook some of these games where it's like, hey, they're bottom of the conference, their record's not very good. We can just easily walk in there and mow over them like it's nothing. And those are the games you really have to worry about. Like your almost guaranteed wins, if you want to call it, are probably the scariest ones that you want to look at because, going in, it's probably a different mindset for them. They're like, hey, we got to play our hardest to the end of the season, try and get the best seeding we can for the OVC. Mm-hmm. But, they're probably thinking also in the back of their minds like, hey, these guys aren't very good. We can easily win this. We don't really have to try that hard. So I just think, if they have that kind of mentality of like, this is going to be an easy game, we're obviously going to win, doesn't really matter, that, there could easily be an upset. And it's, that would be detrimental to one of these top 3 teams, especially Murray, with that, being in the top 25, I think you are now expected, probably to win the OVC easily and to, make a good run in the tournament in March Madness. So I don't think them dropping a game or even Moorhead dropping a game will affect, their longevity of the season. But I just don't think they'll lose a game. But it's very possible on these road games, because going to any road environment is tough.
And
it's real tough.
I think you're right on the Murray State, but I'm going to go back to Moorhead, man. Those last 2 games of the season, of the regular season in particular, that Illinois trip is rough, man. I promise you they're not flying. So they're busing from Moorhead all the way to Illinois in late February. It is going to be cold, and they're playing against the 2, like SIUE and then Eastern Illinois are both I don't want to say congruently. I don't know why I'm trying to say that. Together, the bottom 2 teams in the OVC. It is a late February game in Illinois that they just bust to against 2 of the lowest seeds in the entire conference. They are not looking at them saying, oh, we're going to be ready to play them. They're looking forward to that OVC tournament in Evansville to, hopefully to get some revenge on either one of the top 2 seeds. That's why I am so convinced that Moorhead's going to drop one of those 2 games, not because they don't have the talent to win them, obviously, just because of all the intangibles that come with such. It's just the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but those late February games is whenever you kind of like are dialing in. You're like, all right, it's close to March. We're ready. We got to make this run. Because I don't see Moorhead getting an at-large bid, right? They'll probably have to win the OVC to get into the tournament. So that's what they're, really fighting for.
Right.
So I think, mid to late February is whenever they're like, all right, we got to turn it up to 11 to really, hone in and be ready to make this run in the OVC tournament. Because, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, right? Murray's already beat Moorhead twice, possibly going to beat Belmont twice. I don't think that Murray, obviously they have the talent to do it, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times. So I really think you're probably going to see Belmont or Moorhead come out of this OVC, tournament, and then that takes a large bid away from another team because Murray's not going to not make the tournament. They're in the top 25, right? So surely
You would think.
you would think. You know,
Yeah.
the selection committee is always something crazy to talk about. But I just don't see Murray missing the tournament, even if they don't win the OVC tournament.
Well, that's
And that is time.
time.
All right, our next segment is about the NFL, and then specifically the Super Bowl. LA Rams are the champs. What do you guys think about this game? It was 23-20 final score. As a Bengals fan, it was heartbreaking, especially at the fourth quarter, but I know you guys got some opinions about it.
Well, fellow Bengals fan here,
Yep.
heartbroken that's a way of putting it lightly. I genuinely, I'm going to talk about just the game because there's obviously the controversy, multiple controversies, but just in terms of the game, I really felt the defenses from both ends really showed up. I know Jalen Ramsey didn't really have his best game, but specifically from Cincinnati's side, yeah, OBJ got hurt, but man, they were playing so well. That line with Hendrickson, Hill, they were playing well. Logan Wilson in the middle, our linebacker was doing amazing. Our secondary, outside of one individual, was doing so well. I mean, Von Bell was making every single tackle. Jesse Bates and Awuzie both had an interception apiece. And then on the right side, we have Eli Apple.
Yep.
Yeah, and I get it. He was a prominent with a prominent talent, I should say, with a lot of. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. He had a lot of potential, but he's in his third team.
Untapped potential.
Yeah. Eli Apple is on his third team in 6 years. He was signed to a 1-year deal by the Bengals before the season began. And I think I don't want to say that the Cincinnati front office regrets it because obviously we went to the Super Bowl. But this man is the epitome of burnt toast. I mean, oh my Lord. I mean,
Sure.
anytime, and I get, you can't put Mike Hilton or Awuzie on that right side just because Awuzie is so good on the left and Mike Hilton's a slot guy. So there's really no one else you have to put on them. At least, we didn't. So Eli Apple was kind of the guy. But good grief, man. I get, he talks so much trash.
So much, yep.
He talks so much trash for a guy that got carried by everyone else on his team and for a guy that can't. I'm sure if we lined up, I could probably beat him. I am not a football guy. I played soccer. My hands are about as good as two frying pans trying to smack a ball together. But listen, I feel confident that if I lined up against Eli Apple, I could take him. I could score. And it's just, he's so, near the end of the game, he gave up our second holding call, and we'll get to the first one because of, controversy. He gave up a second holding call that gave them a 1st and goal. And what did they do? They were 1st and goal with Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson in their backfield. And what did they do? They threw the ball back to him, back at him, to Cooper Kupp. I get it's Cooper Kupp, but I don't think it's just that it's Cooper Kupp. Yes, this guy led the league. He's probably the best receiver this year. Yes. Do you know why they threw the ball on their own? One, because the Eli Apple was the guy guarding. I cannot. I'm sure he's a great guy. I want to give him all the respect because he is making a lot of money. But he shouldn't be. This guy, he's going to be unemployed after this season. He is not finding another home, I don't think, unless he's a backup somewhere, which would make sense.
The Jets like the old guys.
The Jets like the old guys. Yeah, he'll find his way to New York where he started. He'll just play in green instead of blue. We were one Eli Apple away from potentially winning the Super Bowl. I felt like we had control. Our line is trash. Don't get me wrong. Our line is bad. It needs to be fixed. But we are one cornerback, in my mind, away. So before we get to the controversy, I want to stop yelling, and I want to give you guys the floor to have your opinions. And then we'll get on to 2 calls that one was called and the other wasn't. And then we'll dive into those. So take it away, one of you guys.
Yeah, I just thought, I'll go quick. Just Cooper Kupp, dominant there for the Rams. They were just targeting, though, Eli Apple because it's the weakness of the defense. So they knew every time Cooper Kupp's going to make the catch. It's just obviously that's who they're going to go to, and
right.
It worked for him. You couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to beat Stafford and Kupp. When they're together like that in a duo, it's hard to beat. What'd you think, Derek?
Yeah, Kupp had 8 receptions on 10 targets for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. Firstly, I just want to give myself a little pat on the back. I called Cooper Kupp winning the MVP, even though I don't think he should have. I think he should have went to Aaron Donald. That man played his heart out in the second half. You know, came up with some big sacks at the end. You know, hurries, QB dropbacks, whatever. But yeah, man, it's just bad. Like, I mean, even during the game, I texted Ryan and I was like, man, I feel for you because Eli Apple is just awful. You know, it was a sad time because, like, you don't get me wrong, he's in the NFL for a reason. He's obviously good,
Right.
but just in comparison to like the rest of the team, like Matthew Stafford completed 26 passes on 40 attempts, and you're telling me, like, you knew going in, we are going to Cooper Kupp. As soon as OBJ went down, which, you know, sorry for him to tear his ACL like that. It was unfortunate. But as soon as he went down, you don't have Tyler Higbee, okay? Your run game has not worked all night. Where do we go? We're going to Cooper Kupp. That is like the only option you have left. Why do you not double team Cooper Kupp?
Well, they were near, like, closer to the end. They really were. And I will say it is kind of hard whenever you got someone like Matt Stafford looking, you know, like looking off Von Bell, who once again, Von Bell played amazing. But when you have, I know all of you have seen it, like everyone at home that watches Super Bowl and follows ESPN, because ESPN is just daily, I think they have a reminder to share that highlight because, I mean, it was amazing. But, like, I mean, just Matt dropped back, looked to his right, Von Bell followed his eyes, and the ball went left. Right perfectly to Cooper. So, like, that's going to happen. You know, like you can't stop greatness like that. You can only limit. And we're going to give up stuff like that. But last drive of the game, there is 3 minutes left when they get the ball. Once again, you know where it's going. Why is Eli Apple still on Cooper Kupp? To give this some perspective, 2 weeks earlier when we played the Chiefs, the Bengals, Eli Apple that first half was getting destroyed by Tyreek Hill. Absolutely demolished. Tyreek moves to the slot in the third quarter. Guess who guards him? Mike Hilton. Tyreek had 2 targets, 2 drops, and no receptions, if I remember correctly. Nothing. He had nothing. Granted, our front line was actually getting a lot more pressure, and we were playing more aggressively, but still, the second Eli Apple is either not in the game or not guarding the guy that they want to target, he doesn't do anything. And I feel like it was a very similar situation. Eli is getting cooked. You move. I know Mike Hilton is a slot guy. I'm trusting him more than I'm trusting Eli. You know, I can't imagine a world where he finds himself on a team again. Anyway, moving on to the controversies. We'll move on to the one that came first. T. Higgins, that touchdown on Jalen Ramsey.
Yep.
I grabbed his face mask, kind of slung him a little bit, came open. Jalen argued it a lot. Ended up going for a 75-yard touchdown I think that was 75 of the 160 Jalen gave up in the game. Zach, what do you think about it?
It should have been an obvious call. They missed it. Biggest stage there, the Super Bowl. You know, it wasn't really. It did affect the game a little bit. They got a touchdown from it, but really the second half was the biggest part of the game. Like, that's what really came down to it. I feel like that call, though, kind of gave the Rams a little bit more momentum and, like, kind of like, you know, you guys going to do this to us. We're going to come back and get you now. So got them kind of fired up. But it was a needed touchdown for the Bengals, though, because if we didn't get that touchdown, I feel like it was going to go downhill from there.
Right. And I will say, after that, there was a no call of a blatant holding by Jalen on T. And when Cincinnati was in their own red zone, there was a no call there too. You know, like, so I felt like up until the final minute and a half, I won't say the officiating was good, but it was even. It was, you know, if I'm going to no call one way, I'm going to no call the other way. There was hardly any flags going into that final minute and a half. And Derek, I can see it in your eyes. You got a take coming. I want to hear it.
Man, like, I officiate. You know, I do baseball, though. But I agree with you. If you're going to let something slide one way, you got to let it slide the other way. And I think that's what they did for the most part during the game. I think, you know, like until you said my final 90 seconds of the game, I think there was 4 flags. You know,
more than any flag in the entire game. Like, that 1 minute and a half stretch had more flags than that were thrown in the entire game.
Yeah, it was absurd. So, yes, I think Jalen Ramsey getting the face mask should have been called. The holding should have been called. But you didn't call either. So I think at the end of the game, let it go. You've let it go all day. You can't change it up in the last, 90 seconds.
Right.
And be like, you know what? I'm actually going to do my job now.
Right. Well, I don't even think moving into the controversy, because this is, I feel like, the controversy of all controversies, right? Logan Wilson on Cooper Kupp, crosses in the middle. Wilson plays it perfectly. He's not. I mean, there's it's a physical game, so there's contact that's supposed to be allowed, right? He's not really. He's kind of feeling him up a little bit, but he's not holding. He's not grabbing at him. He keeps up with him and he deflects the ball. Out comes a yellow flag. Out comes 3 of them, and all these things, and they call him for holding, which obvious anyone that's listening to this probably has seen it, so they know what it was, and they know blatantly it wasn't. As a Bengals fan, I'm not mad that we lost. Okay, we went 10-7. We were the 4 seed. We weren't really projected to go anywhere. Honestly, after we beat Las Vegas in the first round, I was just happy that the streak was over. We could have lost the next week to the Titans, and I would have been sad, but I would have been like, you know what? We're back. Like, we're here. Like, we got Joey B, fix that offensive. Like, everything we're saying now, I would have said and been happy with weeks ago. But then you add into the fact that we were in the lead for most of the second half, and that, not that the Rams, because granted, the Rams won, all the respect to them. Like, I love Matt Stafford. Big Wit, Andrew Whitworth, played in Cincinnati for a decade, got his ring. I love it. OBJ, like we were saying, prayers up to him, because when he tore his ACL, as soon as he did it, like, I was so sad. Like, I know he's on the Rams, but like, he wanted it more than I think anybody on the field. And it really was, it was a really heartbreaking scene watching him go. But when Cincinnati's up in that situation, the defense is playing well. Yes, the line they fell off that second half. They got tired. Aaron Donald, I was just looking at the stats. I can pull them up again. Aaron Donald had 2 sacks. Ishawn Robinson, Ernest Jones, Leonard Floyd all had a sack apiece. Von Miller had 2 sacks. So, there was 7 sacks in this game, and 6 of them came in the second half. That line, and we played, not to mention the Bengals offensive staff, Zach Taylor, moved to a more conservative play to not lose instead of playing to win. There's a big difference. When a team plays to not lose and tries to save a lead, play conservative, more than likely they're going to lose. And I think that shows kind of the youth in this coaching staff. Because, Zach Taylor's a few years older, but Sean McVay's been doing it longer. This is his 2nd Super Bowl. And you could tell that Sean was a lot more aggressive in his play call. He was playing to win. And so I feel like when you add in our line, which is already not very good, is tired, gave up 6 sacks, as I said, and you play conservative. You're not getting Joe out of the pocket. You're not really giving Joe Mixon any chance to make anything happen. It's gonna, and then Joe gets hurt. He gets rolled up on a sack and twists his knee really bad, which I'm hoping isn't anything. But then, like, other than that, like, I know we had our issues. The Rams had issues too. I didn't feel like the Rams were a better team than the Bengals were. Never one point in that game. On paper, yes, they are. Never at one point did I feel like the Rams just outplayed the Bengals. So with that, and then you add in, I feel like the refs decided the game. Because it was 3rd and goal. Logan Wilson's deflection, if it stands, is 4th and goal on their own 9. Not saying that the Bengals win because of that. Because, anything's possible. There's 1:15 left with 3 timeouts in Los Angeles' favor. So there's still a good possibility we lose. But even in that scenario where the play stands with Logan Wilson, he doesn't get called for holding because he wasn't holding. But doesn't get called. Bengals get the ball back if they don't score on that 4th down, because they're going for it. Say that they punt the ball back. There's no promise that the Rams don't just come right back and score anyway. But in that scenario, the Bengals lost because the Rams outplayed them. In the scenario that played out, I don't think that the Rams outplayed Cincinnati at all. That's what hurts. That's what, as a Cincinnati fan, that's what just grinds my gears, is that, like, this game was so good. It was almost perfect. But because a referee, a person wearing black and white, decided the game instead of a person wearing orange and black or white and blue. That's my problem. That's why I'm so hurt. That's why I am, like, agitated and angry about it. Because if that call doesn't happen and the Rams win, I accept it. And I'm still happy. Like, I'm happy the way the season went. But
I don't want to interrupt you here, but I do have breaking news. The Bengals just signed an extension to keep Zach Taylor through 2026.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah. So I just want to get your take on that real quick.
Zach,
that's huge. I mean, hopefully we can get back to Super Bowl again next year, but having him consistently over the years, that's a great hire and great extension. What about you, Ryan?
I mean, Mike Brown, he hit the home run. I mean, we've been, as a Cincinnati fan, I've been a Cincinnati fan my whole life. I know you have
Yep,
too.
same.
Mike Brown has made a lot of mistakes. Owner Mike Brown, for those that don't know. A lot of mistakes. This was not one of them. Great hire. No brainer. Just happy. And I'm happy for Zach Taylor, happy for the city of Cincinnati in terms of the breaking news.
Do you think, obviously you keep your head coach, do you think you keep the rest of your coaching staff, or do you want to change something? Do you want to see something change? O-line coach, offensive coordinator. What do you think?
I don't think you blame. First, I want to get talent on that line before I blame the coach, because yes, if Joe Burrow doesn't start getting protection, his career is going to end. It's going to flame out before it even gets going. But I want to get talent, some actual talent, to where on paper, we're looking and we're saying we have a good line. And if it still sucks, then yes, O-line coach is under fire. I know we recently lost one of our defensive assistants. He's under Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame now. He's a defensive coordinator there. Coach Lou, our D coordinator, he's amazing. I feel like we got to hold on to him. The name of our offensive coordinator escapes me. I feel like he shouldn't be under fire because I feel like Zach Taylor calls most of the plays. But they need to be more aggressive, because when we were aggressive that first half, it was a good game. Like we had, like I said, they didn't outplay us. They need to, if we stay aggressive, stay creative, we will be back in the Super Bowl, without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And once Joe Burrow, too, can keep the ball in the air, air it out, it'll look good. Jamar Chase, 5 receptions, 89 yards. I expected more from him, at least a touchdown or two. T. Higgins did pretty good with 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon, the running back, though, that throwing touchdown he had, I was shocked it came out of nowhere. I was like, running back's now throwing touchdown. He's only
Philly
the
special
5th.
Came to Cincinnati.
For real, yeah. He's only the 5th non-quarterback in Super Bowl history to throw a touchdown.
That's the kind of creative and aggressive play that I was talking about. Just stuff like that. If we keep, and I'm not saying Joe Mixon throws the ball every game.
Yeah, not every game.
But just stuff, get Joe Burrow out of the pocket a little bit. Get maybe some sweeps, some jet sweeps to Jamar. Getting our offensively, getting our playmakers invested in the game.
That was good to see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, good season though from the
Another
Bengals.
hot topic right now, is does this cement Matthew Stafford's Hall of Fame career, or did he have too much legendary help in this game to make it a cement for him?
Gosh,
That's tough.
that is tough.
Because obviously he spent a lot of time in Detroit, was had the career there, whatever it was. Whether you want to say it was good or bad, he was the only bright light in Detroit, right? Then he comes to Los Angeles. He's got Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. They go out and get Von Miller. He has Cooper Kupp, the Triple Crown winner for wide receiver. That's an unreal talent. Then they go get OBJ, who we all know OBJ is an outstanding receiver. And then they have a stacked backfield as well.
Right.
Cam Akers, Sony Michel,
Right.
Darrell Henderson. Yes, Matthew Stafford is amazing. I'm not going to discredit what he did. It was outstanding. But his supporting cast, compared to Joe Burrow's supporting cast, was so far and beyond better that I don't think this cements his Hall of Fame career. I think he's got to keep doing this for a while. Maybe lead the league in touchdowns next year or yards or something. I don't think this winning the Super Bowl automatically gets him to the Hall of Fame. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. 12 seasons in Detroit, and like you're talking about, he didn't have the pieces around him to make a Super Bowl, make even a playoff wins. But being at the Rams, having those core players around him, he needs 2 or 3 more Super Bowls if you want to make him into a Hall of Famer. He's a great quarterback, though. He has the skill, but the people around him help him more than just being a lone guy like he was in Detroit. So, Ryan, what do you think?
How many Hall of Famers have had Hall of Fame help? I don't think you can quantify saying he's not a Hall of Famer just because he had help. I feel like that is yes, he had more help than Joe, but Joe still had, he had, I would say, the best wide receiver core in the league. And Joe Mixon's a great running back, and that defense, as we talked about, outside of Eli Apple, is no joke. So I feel like trying to say, oh, he's not a Hall of Famer because he had help, I feel like that's not fair. And when you take also into account, this man was as good as he was in Detroit, as long as he was. And Detroit, that franchise did not help him. That franchise did not help him. The only person they had, and they squandered it, was Megatron. Calvin Johnson was the only help this man had in 12 years, and because of how that franchise is run, they forced him into retirement. And to put this into perspective, how good Matt Stafford is, two receivers over the last 25 years have had the best receiving yards, like the record. Both were quarterbacked by Matt Stafford. One was Cooper Kupp and the other was Calvin Johnson. If you ask me, his career is not over yet, obviously, right? I feel like we get too much into, how many rings does he have? Oh, championships. Oh, I would say, yeah, he is a Hall of Famer. He's been in the league for so long. Was it 13 years? He is 34 years old. He has been as consistent as you can come. He's been as grit and grind, been as injured as he has possibly been, and he's taken a poverty franchise in Detroit. I don't want to be disrespectful, but they're just not good. Just taking this franchise, and in 12 years they made the playoffs 3 times. Granted, they lost 3 times, but with the receiver, breaking records twice in his career. He is now Super Bowl champion. Yes, he has a turnover issue, but I feel like those are things you can overlook. In how many Hall of Famers have had Hall of Fame help? A lot. Yeah. So I don't think you can, if you're wanting to say no, he's not a Hall of Famer, I understand, because he's not, his career's not done. He's not really yes, he won the Super Bowl, but this has been his 1 year of dominance, right? Just as a team. Yes, I can agree to that. But I would say, yeah, I feel like he's been influential in the league. Yeah.
Speaking of turnovers, he threw 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl. All right. Why could Cincinnati not capitalize? Obviously, they capitalized on the one coming out of halftime, got the touchdown right away. But the other's interception, obviously it was near the end of the first half. But, you won the turnover margin, right? I feel like you got to do something with it. You had too many, drives that got you to the red zone and just faltered. And you walked away with a field goal. What was the problem there, Ryan or Zach? What was your take? Why did we have to get to the red zone so many times and then just collapse when we got, basically to the finish line?
Yeah, I think it's just the defense of the Rams that were just so strong in the red zone. It's hard to beat Von Miller and Darnold and all these people out there. And the offensive line, though, for the Bengals just couldn't keep Joey B protected enough. So that really hurt them. I think that's one of the keys is just if the quarterback doesn't have time to throw the ball or to hand it off, you're not going to be able to do much productive.
I think you said 2 of the 3 reasons. I do think, the line, they just tired. They gave up 1 sack in the first half. Joe wasn't really hit, wasn't really pressured all that much. Did a really good job, and then that second half they just were flat. And I think credit to the Rams defense because their stars started. They played very well. But I think the third factor is what we've already talked about. Zach Taylor's offense became conservative. They became one, like I had said before, play not to lose instead of play to win. And those 3 things combined, you get those turnovers. We talked about how well the Bengals D played. They were amazing. The best you can play against the team with that much offensive firepower. Held them to 16 points until the final minute of the fourth quarter, So yeah, when you have those 3 factors on the offensive end or in the defensive end for the Rams, but the offensive end for Cincinnati, yes, turnovers are huge, and yes, the Bengals the Bengals had 0 turnovers, didn't they? It was 2-0, yeah. So it was that, yeah, but all those intangibles on the offensive end for Cincinnati and the defensive for the Rams just proved too much,
And they've since released the Super Bowl odds for next year. And surprisingly, neither the Bengals or the Rams are favored to win. Right now, currently sitting atop is the Buffalo Bills, tied with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think the Rams are 4th and the Bengals are 5th, favored. Are you too surprised that nobody expects either of these teams to make, the run right back? Because, obviously I think the Rams, Ryan and I were speaking the other day, they're running out of time, right? Aaron Donald's probably going to retire this year, if not within the next couple. Jalen Ramsey's been in the league for a while. Von Miller's been here for a while.
His contract also ran out. Von Miller.
Matthew Stafford has been in the league for 13 years.
Yeah.
They're running out of time. So I think if they're going to make a repeat to back to the Super Bowl, it's got to happen with either next year or the year after. Otherwise, I don't see it happening.
Right.
And with the Bengals, obviously they're a young, upcoming team. You know, they get an O-line. They could be right back. So why do you think neither of these two teams are favored?
Well, I think the Bengals is a favorite because of, like you said, how young they are. People are probably underestimating them again. I mean, they were a 4 seed in the playoffs. Weren't expected to go this far. Underdog kind of mentality. So they're probably just thinking, you know, they're going to do the same as last year and, you know, maybe make it to a playoff game, maybe win 1 or 2 games, but not make it as far as they did this year. Now, the Rams, though, I'm surprised because, I mean, like you were talking about, I mean, they have the pieces there. They could do it again next year. They can also, they can repeat, but they have to do it quick. I mean, they don't have 3-4 years to come back to the Super Bowl. So what do you think, Ryan?
I think exactly that. I'm going to start with the Rams. Their window's closing. Like I feel all of us have said that. Like next year in particular, like talking about guys that are going to be back. OBJ, if he signs back, because he's another free agent. He just had his ACL, or well, he's going to have his ACL reconstructive surgery because it came out, as we had said earlier, it was an ACL tear. He could miss the entirety of next season. That you know depends on how well he recovers from that. On the offensive line, Andrew Whitworth's probably going to retire. If Aaron Donald retires, that's a defensive line. Like both lines on each side of the ball are getting huge losses. You could lose Von Miller, who's a free agent. Jalen Ramsey will be there, so that defense will always have like the decent secondary. I mean, offensively, you still have Van Jefferson, Cooper Kupp. Even if OBJ doesn't play, if you don't trade Darrell Henderson, you have Cam Akers. So and Matt Stafford. So they're going to be fine offensively. I'm more worried about their defense. Like even if Aaron Donald comes back, just because like. If they load up and get Aaron Donald and Von Miller back, I feel like there's a good shot they can repeat. But so many players are for them are in flux. Either going to leave, going to retire, you don't really know, or injured, you don't really know what's going to happen. So I can understand why they're at 5. I feel like that's being generous, honestly, because they probably got slapped at the 5 because of the defending champions. And like once again, on paper, they still have a lot of talent. But if guys leave, guys can't return because of injury, guys retire. I mean, they could have a hard time even making the playoffs, but the NFC is weaker than the AFC. And this was the point I was going to make about the AFC, because this is a topic of conversation that I would want to get into. The AFC is stacked. I can understand, like, with Cincinnati being at, 4?
Yeah, they're 4.
Okay, and 2, so we've had 5, the top 5, right? Yeah. Bills, Chiefs, who was 3?
It was Bills, Chiefs, Rams, Bengals, Cowboys.
Cowboys, okay. So 3 of the top 5 teams are from the AFC.
And 1 and 2 is AFC.
Yeah, 1 and 2 are the AFC. And that's not just those 2. I mean, you still have, I think Las Vegas will be all right. I mean, the AFC North, Baltimore's going to be back. They didn't lose their offensive coordinator. John Harbaugh is still up there. Or Jim, which one is up? One of the Harbaughs.
Jim Harbaugh,
One of the Harbaughs is up in Baltimore. Lamar's coming back. If the Steelers can make a swing for a quarterback, which I guarantee you they will be right in the mix with it. I don't know what the Browns will do if they can reload and maybe stay healthy.
The Browns are awful. Even with Baker.
And there are just so many. The Titans could reload. I mean, yes, their offense is kind of one-dimensional, but Mike Vrabel is a great coach. Ryan Tannehill is Mike Vrabel is a great coach. Tannehill he's a guy that can run that system effectively. Derrick Henry is going to be Derrick Henry. There are just so many teams that could potentially make a run like we did and make it to the Super Bowl. Whereas in the NFC, I don't know why the Cowboys are so highly ranked. I think as
haven't won a playoff game in how many years?
As long as they have Mike McCarthy.
A long time.
Yeah, as long as they have Mike McCarthy. I like Dak Prescott. I like CeeDee Lamb. Zeke is still a good running back. I don't know if he's what he was, but he's still good. That defense, I mean, you got Diggs, and who was the linebacker that won? He won Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Trevon Diggs? Oh, Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons, that's it. Yeah, I mean, defensively, you have 2 great young pieces who you can build around for a long time. As long as they have Mike McCarthy, I don't think they'll do anything. I feel like Mike McCarthy's a safe hire. I thought he was back when they replaced Jason Garrett. I still think he's a safe hire. I don't think he's a guy that will. He showed it at the end of his reign in Green Bay, and he's showing it again in Dallas. He's not a guy that. He's not a winning coach. Yes, he has a Super Bowl to his name, but that was when he was a lot younger. I don't think that they will do anything as long as they have McCarthy. But other than that, in the NFC, who do you have? Like, who else is going to challenge, especially with the Rams? I mean, are the Eagles? We don't know where the Niners will be because they're gonna slot in Trey Lance. Who knows?
All right, just real quick, we got about 20, 30 seconds here. Give me your Super Bowl projection for next year. Who do you think is in the Super Bowl. Obviously, you might be a little biased. You're going to say the Bengals.
A little bit, yeah.
Just give me something real quick.
I hope it's the Bengals and Rams again. That's what I'm hoping for. A repeat again of this year's Super Bowl. But on the better side, the Bengals win next year.
Non-biased pick, it'll probably be Bills-Niners. I would pick the Niners if Trey Lance goes off. Biased pick, I'd want to see Bengals and Niners. I want that redemption story, man.
I think, for me, it's going to go, I think we go Packers-Chiefs.
Interesting.
Packers-Chiefs.
That'd be fun.
Good.
Packers
That'd be
fan.
fun to
If we
watch,
keep
yeah.
Rodgers and Devontae Adams, which probably won't happen. But,
Maybe.
Yeah.
you know, I hope that we do. All right, but that is it for this segment. Moving on to the next. And next, we have the NBA. And, you know, obviously, the final days of trade deadline was up. You know, a lot of stuff happened, a lot of moving parts. As not, you know, I'm not a big NBA guy, but, you know, I know you two are. So, you know, walk me through all the different kinds of trades that we had and what went down.
Well, obviously we have the big one, but we're going to save that for just for a minute. We'll get to it. But first, the Mavericks traded Kristaps Porzingis to Washington for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, which is interesting because Dinwiddie was kind of brought in to be that the point guard for Brad Beal. That didn't pan out. No one really liked Spencer in Washington. Brad was injured most of the year. Washington also got a second-round pick for this upcoming draft. After that, Boston made a couple of deals. So first, they acquired Derek White, which is interesting because he was a big piece for San Antonio not that long ago. I mean, I know he hasn't done much recently. He was kind of that guy that was either starring beside or backing up DeJounte Murray. So for those that don't know, Derek White's this tall, lanky, athletic point guard from Colorado. So it's going to be interesting to see how Boston throws him into the lineup. But they sent Josh Richardson, which I was shocked by because he's a great 3-and-D guy that really I know he didn't do as much, but I felt like he could really round out that lineup. Didn't really work out that way. They sent him, Romeo Langford, a 2022 first round and a 2028 first round for Derek White. So I guess that will show you how they value Derek White because they sent a couple first rounds for this upcoming draft and then a couple years later, along with two decent wing point guard guys. And then with Houston, Boston sent Dennis Schroeder, Enes Kanter Freedom, and Bruno Fernando, all in exchange for Daniel Tice. A little lopsided there. Daniel Tice was a guy he was in Boston not that long ago, last season. He did a lot of good things for them. Brought a lot of energy, was a leadership in that locker room, backup center. He might start. I don't remember who exactly they start at the 5. But it makes sense why they brought him back, but they gave up a lot. Like Dennis Schroeder was their starting point guard. Once again, he didn't really pan out. A guy that held out in LA last season trying to get a bigger contract, ended up having to settle for a much smaller 1-year deal in Boston. Makes sense they traded him away. And his Kanter Freedom was that guy that kind of filled in their 5 spot. Wasn't a big defensive presence, but still. And then Bruno Fernando was just kind of a bench piece. But that's a lot to give up for a guy that might not even start for you. I get what he did in the locker room, but and now moving on to one that we're actually going to discuss and talk about. The biggest in terms of quantity of moving pieces. There is a 4-team deal between the Bucks, Clippers, Kings, and Pistons. So the Bucks, from the Clippers, they get Serge Ibaka, which is a huge get. And we'll discuss that. But before we talk about it, the rest of what they got a 2nd-round pick from Sacramento, a 2nd-round pick from Detroit, and then cash considerations from the Clippers, along with Serge. So what do you guys think of the defending champs, Giannis Antetokounmpo, getting Serge Ibaka?
I think that was huge because, I mean, Ibaka, he was great at OKC, continues, he's an older guy now, but he's a veteran guy for that team. Having those 2 big guys now for the Bucks, I mean, that's a huge pickup for him. And then also the picks, I mean, that always is beneficial too, get young guys. But what do you think, Derek, of that?
Yeah, I think getting Ibaka, he was, if I remember correctly, he was a big part of the Toronto championship.
He was.
Mm-hmm.
He was.
Yep.
So,
he was a stretch 5.
Yeah, so he was a real big part of that. Him and Kawhi up there in Toronto winning that. I really think, the league messed up. Like we always talk about, everybody's like, oh, you're stacking teams, building the big 3 or whatever. You give someone like Giannis a legit big guy, it's scary, right? Giannis is big himself. He's like what, 6'9"?
Oh, he's like 6'11".
Yeah, he's
big,
massive
Yeah.
dude.
He's a big guy.
But he's like KD, and where he can play a point guard almost.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that he has a legit post presence now is just unreal, and I think the league needs to watch out because Milwaukee might just go back to back.
Oh yeah, you give him another guy that can play that defensive side because the Bucks are good defensively. Like Drew Holiday's one of the best defensive guards in the league. It's not a secret anymore. He is one of the best defenders there in terms of guard play. Giannis is a shot blocking machine, and then you add in another shot blocker in Serge Ibaka. It's terrifying because right now the Bucks are sitting at third in the East behind Miami and Chicago. They're one game out of the first seed. And then they acquire a guy that will fill in a huge roster spot for them. So that's kind of scary. So also in that trade, moving on, the Clippers would receive Rodney Hood from Milwaukee, Semi Ojeleye from Milwaukee, and then I don't even know who this guy was. He was from Sacramento. I'm assuming he's a big. Vanja Marinkovic. I don't know who he is.
It's an awesome name, though.
Great name. Love it. But that's who the Clippers got. And I mean, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like I know they traded not that long ago for was it Norman Powell? They traded Eric Bledsoe for Norman Powell, and that's a great pick. Like I mean, it's huge. It's a great asset. But then you get a guy that plays a very similar position in Rodney Hood. So I'm not like they have a lot of depth, but I don't know who's going to fill in the Serge Ibaka spot. So that'll be interesting to see. Moving on, this is what was interesting. This next two teams, this is really what I wanted to get to. Sacramento dealt Marvin Bagley to Detroit in exchange in this deal for Dante DiVincenzo from Milwaukee, Josh Jackson from Detroit, Trey Lyles from Detroit, David, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Michinau from the LA Clippers. And I'm sorry if you're
Another
watching
great
this.
name.
I know. If you're watching this, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. And then a second-round pick from Detroit. So what do you guys think of not only the Kings kind of blowing up this project that they had going on, of course. Last week we talked about the big deal. What do you guys think about them just blowing up all these young pieces like this and sending them out?
I mean, I like some of the pieces that they're getting, though. I like Trey Lyles from Kentucky. We've watched him play here for some years. But besides that, I mean, it's Marvin Bagley. He's a good player, too.
Yeah.
So they're losing a key piece to their offense there. So that's and their defense as well, because, I mean, he's a big guy, too.
Yeah.
Played at Duke. What do you think, Derek, about it?
First off, I want to give Ryan his props. He called Marvin Bagley being traded. So, you know, hats off to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, but this is just what we've, like, come to expect from the Kings, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like the Reds where, you know, they get some good players, they build them up, and then they ship them off to whoever wants them the most. You know, like you can keep all these players and potentially make a playoff run. You know, like you have De'Aaron Fox leading that team. He's one of the young and upcoming point guards in the league.
Right.
I think he's a really good talent. But you just gave away all his supporting cast.
Right.
Like, and I think the supporting cast you got in return is not nearly as good as what you had.
Yeah.
You know, do they get any picks with this or no?
They got a second-round pick from Detroit.
I mean, you know,
They did get some last week when they traded Tyrese and Buddy Hield, but not.
yeah, man, but like I don't think like you don't want a second-round pick like that. Who wants a 33 to 64 kind of player, right? You know, I don't know where this pick's landing or whatever, but like I don't think there are that many good players in college right now to where you're like, oh yeah, we need to go get this guy in the second round. Maybe there is overseas, I'm not sure, but I don't think the supporting cast there is going to be nearly as good as it was, and I think they're just going to keep faltering.
Which is sad because they were already their record is awful. They're already one of the worst teams in the league. I don't understand. As we discussed last week, I wanted to track down somebody from Sacramento, whoever made the deal for Tyrese Halliburton, because that was awful. But this is what's interesting to me, because yes, they got Domantas Sabonis. Once again, 25-year-old, got a couple years on his contract, could really help out De'Aaron. I don't understand why, because Marvin Bagley did want out. He had been requesting a trade for a while, Buddy Hield had been kind of showing he didn't like being there either. Why didn't you pair Marvin and Buddy to try to get one of these first-round picks you were discussing? These guys that they're getting back, like once again, I feel like they lost more than they could ever have gained back, unless they got an absolute stud and star, because Tyrese Halliburton was the guy, man. He was going to be your number 2. Like, it's so unfortunate, because these guys that they've gotten, like, when we talked about last week, outside of Domantas Sabonis, they got Jeremy Lamb, and now they're getting Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Jackson, Trey Lyles. And these are good bench pieces that you could, they're younger. You could try. Josh Jackson in particular was doing pretty well in Detroit. Guys that you can build a roster around. But who's going to start? That's my question. Like, do you start? Like, the only conceivable lineup I can see right now, and once again, I need to look at the roster because I don't remember who exactly they have to play the big. But that you got Fox, Jeremy Lamb. Then do you go small and do you play both Josh Jackson and Harrison Barnes and then DeMontis Sabonis? Like, I don't know what in that lineup, regardless, isn't good enough to win anything in the West. They probably won't even make a play-in game.
Yeah, they're already 26 games back.
Yes, and so it's like I get why they did this because they're looking forward and they're probably looking for more trade assets more than anything. Contract, like trying to get in a position where they could probably make a swing with money and cap space. I just don't. Just looking at it, I just don't. I just feel like these are. I said it last week. These are all impulse. They're all like, oh, we need this now. Let's deal this now, and then we'll worry about it later. Whereas these other deals that we've seen, like outside of maybe Boston's grab at Daniel Tice, I feel like all these other ones were guys that legit would help out their squad. Like going back to the Washington, Davis Bertans wasn't working out. The Mavericks need another shooter, another guy beside Luka. So they grabbed two guys that could fill in their needs. Washington wanted a guy that maybe could, be what Davis Bertans was, a big 3-and-D type guy who could be more if he's healthy. Derek White going to Boston was huge. I mean, that he's a much better player than Dennis Schroeder will be as a starting point guard. And once again, he's like 6'6", athletic, can shoot. He'll be great there. But then you look at this deal for the Kings, and they're recognizable names, but they're nothing that's going to win them more games now or even next year, unless they somehow make a deal. But what deal are they going to get for, like their first round pick is going to be valued high, but like, are you going to throw Dante DiVincenzo and Jeremy Lamb in that first pick and be like, give me a superstar? Because no one's going to do that. That's just not happening. So,
okay, but let me ask you, who do they go get?
It's a great question. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm assuming they'll probably get, easy lottery pick. So
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
probably be up there.
I mean,
But nobody in college right now fits what they need.
right.
know.
I mean, they can get Chet Homburg from. I probably mispronounced his name too. I just
Gonzaga?
think
Gonzaga,
think
yeah.
about it off the top of my head. I probably said his name wrong too, but still, yeah. That's a guy they can get. Man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's what's tough. This draft, not that it's weak because it's not, but there's no like that guy's a star. Like
Yeah.
there's none of that.
I think next year you'll have a lot of that though in college.
Year after, yeah,
Yeah.
but not this year.
Yeah, no.
So it just makes you think like, what are they doing? Moving on, we got the trade. Everyone's talking about it for good reason. All right, so I'm just gonna read you the facts and then I'll throw it to one of you guys. Philadelphia and Brooklyn traded. So Philadelphia gets James Harden and Paul Millsap. Speaks for itself. Brooklyn gets Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks, one from 2022, this upcoming draft, and the next for 2027. Zach, hit me with it.
Yeah, I mean, 76ers, I think, got the best deal out of there because Ben Simmons, we've talked about him before, he's not the best out there. Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, there's some good players, good role players for him, come off the bench. But hopefully if James Harden can stay healthy, I mean, 76ers got a good piece there to help him out. And then Paul Millsap, I mean, he's consistent. He's an older guy, too, veteran. Big guy for the paint. That could help him out. But I think it'll be a good one for him.
Yeah, I really think the Sixers kind of struck gold here, right? Because they had Jimmy Butler back in the day, right? And he was a great defender, great point guard, couldn't really shoot that well. And then they went and got Ben Simmons, who I think was, roughly the same.
They already had him when Jimmy was there, but,
Well, okay. Well,
yeah.
So, but I mean, they're kind of the same in my mind. They
Right.
neither could really shoot the ball well. And, you got Joel Embiid, who arguably the best big in the league, other than like Giannis. I don't know if you count Giannis as a true big. I think getting James Harden, someone that can actually like shoot, will really help like Joel Embiid out. And I could see them making a run if James Harden stays healthy. But at the same time, James Harden's a head case. But so is Ben Simmons, and they put up with him.
I wouldn't call him a head case. That's kind of strong.
He's not like the best teammate though, and that's been.
That's true.
I know what
I
you
think
mean.
that's why him, Russ, and Kevin Durant broke up back in the day. Because you think back to that like OKC team, they were stacked. They just couldn't play together.
Right.
So, but that, that's my 2 cents. I'm gonna throw it back to you all because you know a little more than I do.
Well, I know what you're saying. In talking about Joel Embiid, he'd be my pick for MVP. The way that I always try to dissect who I would pick is who does the most with the least. Who has the most success as a team with this individual player who has the least help. Not to say that Joel doesn't have help, but for the longest time, his co-star is gone. Ben Simmons isn't playing, so you're playing with nothing but rotational guys and good starters, and he's still, at one point, he had them to third in the East. Right now, the Sixers are sitting at 5, and they just got one of the best shooting guards in the league, maybe the best we've seen in the last decade. I don't like this year and the upcoming seasons because supposedly James Harden was supposed to have signed a player option for next year, but it doesn't really happen. But as we're wrapping this up, I love it. I feel like the Sixers got the best quality out of this deal. I don't think that the Nets got the worst, but yeah, I love it. Joel for MVP, and the Sixers are going to make a run for that 1 seed.
Yeah, I agree. Harden's a good pickup for him. 67 triple doubles, 8th all time in NBA history. So he'll be scoring for him.
And that is all the time we have this week. I want to thank both of you all for joining me today. Where we have our weekly shows, Subs in 15. Where we talk about everything sports related. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the Eastern Progress. If you're listening to this on iHeartRadio, make sure you follow us. And yeah, thank you.